Could Elon Musk merge Tesla and SpaceX? Yes, he can. But what are the requirements for it to happen? We'll look at this issue in 5 parts. 1. Elon Musk's ownership and voting power. 2. Changes to Tesla's charter. 3. Why SpaceX would likely acquire Tesla. 4. The legal process, major obstacles, and why Texas matters. 5. What if the merger actually happens? Part 1. Elon Musk's ownership and voting power. The biggest obstacle for the merger is corporate governance. Let's start with Tesla. Tesla has a single-class share structure, meaning every share carries exactly 1 vote. Elon Musk owns roughly 19% of Tesla's outstanding shares, giving him 19% voting power. Around 81% of Tesla's voting power belongs to other shareholders. Elon is Tesla's largest shareholder, but he cannot single-handedly approve major corporate actions like mergers. SpaceX is completely different. He owns 42% equity share in the company. Elon Musk owns approximately 849.5 million Class A public shares, representing 12.3% of all Class A stock, which translates to roughly 0.3% of the company's total voting power based on their allocation of 1 vote per share. In contrast, he holds 5.57 billion Class B insider shares, commanding a dominant 93.6% of that specific tier. Because these shares provide 10 votes per share, this block gives him a massive 84.8% of the total voting power. When combining both allocations, Musk owns roughly 6.42 billion total shares, giving him a 42% economic equity stake in SpaceX and an absolute 85.1% total voting control over the entire corporation. In practice, Elon Musk can approve or reject major corporate decisions almost entirely on his own. This difference between Tesla and SpaceX is the foundation of whether a merger is even possible. Part 2. Changes to Tesla's charter. Historically, Tesla required approval from 66.7% of all outstanding shares for major corporate changes. That meant shareholders who didn't vote were effectively counted as no votes, making transformative deals much harder to pass. But after shareholders approved removing that supermajority requirement in November 2025, major structural decisions, such as a potential Tesla-SpaceX merger, can now be approved without abstentions or uncast votes automatically counting against the proposal. Part 3. Why SpaceX would likely acquire Tesla. So which company would acquire the other? SpaceX acquiring Tesla is highly likely. The first reason is size. Today, SpaceX is valued at roughly $2.0 to $2.5 trillion, while Tesla's market capitalization is around $1.55 to $1.60 trillion. That makes SpaceX the larger company, giving it a much stronger position to act as the acquirer. Once the transaction closes, Tesla would no longer exist as an independent publicly traded company. Instead, it would become a subsidiary of SpaceX, while former Tesla investors would become shareholders in the newly combined company. This type of transaction avoids the need for an enormous cash payment and allows the acquisition to be financed using equity instead. However, Elon Musk's control of SpaceX does not mean he can force Tesla to accept the deal. Because Tesla is a public company with independent directors and millions of shareholders, the proposed merger would have to satisfy strict corporate governance and legal requirements, and that's where the real challenges begin. Part 4. The legal process, major obstacles, and why Texas matters. A merger between Tesla and SpaceX would be considered a related party transaction because Elon Musk controls SpaceX and is the CEO of the company, while simultaneously serving as Tesla's CEO and largest shareholder. This creates an obvious conflict of interest. To protect Tesla's shareholders, corporate law requires several safeguards. The first step would be for Tesla to form an independent special committee made up entirely of directors with no ties to Elon Musk. This committee would negotiate directly with SpaceX and determine whether the merger is fair for Tesla shareholders. The deal would then require approval from Tesla's minority shareholders, everyone except Elon Musk, through a majority of the minority vote. If these independent shareholders reject the merger, it cannot proceed. Elon Musk has also moved many of his company's corporate headquarters, including Tesla and SpaceX, to Texas, where recent corporate law reforms have strengthened the business judgment rule and created a clearer framework for transactions involving controlling shareholders. These reforms recognize safeguards such as independent special committees and majority of the minority approvals, making these transactions more predictable than under California's stricter standards. Under Texas law, if the board follows the proper process, using an independent committee, providing full disclosure, obtaining the required shareholder approvals, and avoiding fraud or self-dealing, courts generally defer to the board's judgment. Shareholders challenging the merger must usually prove fraud, bad faith, intentional misconduct, or a serious breach of fiduciary duty. Simply arguing that the merger was a poor business decision is typically not enough, making Texas more management and controller-friendly. California takes a different approach. While it applies the business judgment rule to ordinary corporate decisions, transactions involving controlling shareholders often face the much stricter entire fairness standard. Because Elon controls both Tesla and SpaceX, a California court could closely examine whether the price was fair, the negotiations were independent, Elon improperly influenced the board, and minority shareholders were treated fairly. Even if independent shareholders approved the merger, the court could still conduct a detailed fairness review. If Tesla follows the required procedures, an independent special committee, majority of the minority approval, and full shareholder disclosure, a Texas court is more likely to apply the business judgment rule, focusing primarily on whether the board followed the correct process rather than reevaluating whether the merger itself was perfectly fair. Even so, Tesla's independent shareholders would still have the final say. Part 5. What if the merger actually happens? Now imagine the merger actually succeeds. The result wouldn't simply be a larger automotive company. It would become one of the most vertically integrated technology companies in history. The combined company would control electric vehicles, autonomous driving, humanoid robots, artificial intelligence, satellite internet, reusable rockets, launch services, and eventually Mars transportation. Tesla's Optimus robots could be deployed throughout SpaceX's factories and launch facilities. Starlink could become native communication infrastructure for Tesla vehicles, autonomous robotaxis, and Optimus robots operating around the world. Tesla's advances in AI and full self-driving could accelerate autonomous spacecraft, robotics, and future Mars missions. SpaceX's manufacturing expertise could improve Tesla's production systems, while Tesla's massive cash generation could help finance SpaceX's long-term goal of building a self-sustaining civilization on Mars. Instead of operating as separate companies, every business would reinforce the others, creating a technology ecosystem unlike anything that exists today. But despite this incredible vision, one obstacle remains above everything else. The decision doesn't ultimately belong to Elon Musk, it belongs to Tesla's shareholders. They would have to decide whether exchanging their publicly traded Tesla shares for ownership in a SpaceX-led company creates more value than remaining independent. Until those shareholders vote yes, a Tesla-SpaceX merger remains technically possible, but difficult to achieve. That's my analysis of whether a Tesla-SpaceX merger is actually possible. If you found this video informative, I'd really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to the channel. It motivates me to keep creating more in-depth content like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.